So here we are in the Office 365 Admin Center. Now, if this is your first Office 365 deployment, and I've just deployed and purchased my subscription of Office 365, my main goal is going to be to get my email flowing, get my users be able to connect to their client applications, and get going with the Office 365 services. Now, to do that, I need to set up my organization. Now, I've got a setup link over here with two primary options, Quick Start and Extend Your Setup. Also below, I've got the GoDaddy link. This is through a partnership with Microsoft and GoDaddy, where I can click on the Buy a Domain link, and that domain will then be linked to my Office 365 deployment, having all necessary configurations to link the domain name and the Office 365 subscription without going through many of the manual manipulations that need to happen. Now, when I click on the Quick Start option, I'm presented with the Quick Start wizard options. Now here I've got my 5 steps. Now you have to realize that I've already set up part of this infrastructure, and I can see it right here. It talks about my domain name that I purchased and that I assigned to my organization. Now I can add additional domain names. Again, those are the SMTP suffixes, everything that comes after your @sign, everything that your users will use for their email addresses, but also to log in with their user accounts. Now this initial first step of specifying a domain is grayed out here because I've done it. And I'll go through the processes in a later video to show you how I can add domain names and manipulate those domain names, because it requires some DNS configuration settings as well. However, I can click here on the Add User and Assign Licenses link. Now here, this is an option to add users to my infrastructure. Now I can add users one at a time, and this will be a process that will be probably very similar and familiar to you if you've ever created a user in a Microsoft environment, mostly Active Directory. I can also do a bulk add of users with a CSV file. CSV stands for comma separated values file. Now, CSV files are best viewed in Excel and show you a list of columns of users. Later on in this course, we will review the details of a CSV file. By clicking Next, I will then be presented with the wizard options to create my users or import my CSV files. Again, we'll look at that in later videos. So when I click on the Set Domain Purpose and Configure DNS option, I'm presented with 2 checkboxes for Exchange Online and Lync Online. I can choose which services are going to be associated with my @elfassi.ca SMTP suffix with that domain. The reason why I'm provided with those options is that I want to specify whether a user can log in to his Lync client, his communication client, with that SMTP suffix in their user ID. And also I want to specify whether @elfassi.ca email can flow into my organization. Now, these are configured separately because they require separate DNS configurations as well. And when I click Next, I'm prompted into the Add DNS Records option to set up those DNS records either manually, and then that will require me configuring my DNS through a DNS console, or actually have it go through the GoDaddy tool that will configure all of these DNS settings for me. Now, again, I've configured these DNS settings already, and in a later video in this course, we will review exactly which DNS records need to be created for Office 365 deployment. Now, import user data is actually an optional setting. Now, this is really used in migration scenarios. Migration in Microsoft environments really mean about taking your data or your solution and importing it into an external system. And that's how we refer to as migration, is really taking from one solution, one system, and importing it into a different system. Now, this migration here provides various options. I can migrate from IMAP mailboxes. IMAP is another email access solution, whereas I can export my IMAP mailboxes and bring them into my Office 365 subscription. I can also import PST files. PST files are personal stores. Those are the files you use when you have an Outlook client open. So when you're accessing your email with Outlook, and you might be using a third party or an IMAP solution even to store your email, that email will be stored locally on your computer in a PST file. Now, administrators can collate these PST files and then import them into Office 365. Or as a user as well, you can get that PST file to your administrator who can send them over to Office 365 and import them through the PST Capture to Export Email Data tool. Also, we can have a cutover migration. A cutover migration is a migration where One day, everybody logs in to your Exchange on-premises solution, and then the next, everybody's logging into Office 365. So we cut over from one system to the next. This is the complete opposite of a hybrid coexistence solution. Hybrid coexistence assumes that we have two environments that live together in harmony. A cutover migration means we go from one to the next and we never turn around. Now, the last option here is starting your services, and this is really about getting your users configured. Now here, you're provided with various links and options to help your users log into their email clients, to configure their phones and their tablets, to connect to their email services, to connect to your link for accessing messaging, and also to connect to your SharePoint services for accessing your personal files. So this interface here is not really a configuration, but more of an informational option page. One of the things that we can do from here as well is we can set up PCs and Mac with Office. Based on your subscription of Office 365, you can download Office onto the client computers and have them use their full version of Office that is installed locally on their client computers. And when I click done, I'm back into my basic setup page here. And now I'm going to go back to my Office 365 Admin Center. So the setup link is really one of those important wizards that you'll be using to set up your organization.